So at the moment the Irish Government are finalising the Climate Action Plan 2021, and that plan is to identify how Ireland can reduce all of our greenhouse gas emissions by 51% by 2030. Reducing emissions by 51% is a massive ask, and all sectors have to play a role in that, as agriculture will as well. Agriculture accounts for 34% of national greenhouse gas emissions, so it's quite obvious that agriculture needs to play an important role in this. Carbon sequestration is one of the things that agriculture can bring to the table in terms of reducing carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere. So carbon sequestration is the ability of soil to lock up atmospheric carbon. So it takes carbon from the atmosphere and stores it in the soil. And soils are the largest reservoir of carbon on the planet. And plants are the only mechanism that we have of removing atmospheric carbon dioxide and bringing it into the soil. It's really important because, as I said, it is the main mechanism for removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. And we have a challenge, and the challenge is to keep global warming below 1.5 degrees centigrade. And if we don't do that, the atmospheric systems and the impacts of climate change become much, much greater. So we have a very tiny window of time between now and 2050 to really ensure that we protect this planet for future generations. Carbon sequestration is really difficult to measure. And trying to detect a very small change in that large pool of carbon is very difficult and challenging to do. I would give the analogy of soil like this, of trying to detect a few drops of water going into a basin or into a swimming pool. The challenge is to detect really very, very small changes in the soil carbon. So Vistamilk will be able to give us the scientific data to validate what the effect of different measures are on different soil types and how farmers can then benefit from that.
What we're doing within Targeted Project 1 is to utilise a network of carbon monitoring towers called eddy covariance towers. We're going to distribute them to grasslands around the country that are on different managements, and we're going to have a look at the role that managements can play in sequestering more carbon. What we're also going to look at is the role that managements can have in stopping CO2 emissions from peatland soils. So while our mineral soils can take up more carbon, our peat soils are already full of carbon, and it's what we need to do there is to try and stop those soils emitting CO2 out. There's two ways you can do it. You can either measure the carbon in the soil, wait for 10 or 20 years and come back and measure it again, and there might have been enough carbon built up that you can detect the difference. Or you can do an indirect measure, which is what we're doing with our monitoring towers. Equipment is situated about 3 meters off the ground, so the rule of thumb is for every meter you go up, you're going out 100 meters. So basically our equipment is measuring the carbon exchange of CO2 over a 2 hectare area. We're measuring the carbon dioxide being directly sucked up by the plants, and the carbon also being released by the plants and by the soil. Okay, we're measuring it 10 times every second of the day, every day of the year. Okay, so by the end of the year we've got a vast amounts of data from each of the towers, and we're going to have by the end of this year 17 of these towers. Each one of these towers will be bringing in about 1 terabyte of data for each tower, so that's about 17 terabytes of data a year. So again, that's where insight can come in, but also in terms of the data manipulation and adding value to that data. At the moment we're making up the shortlist of those towers. A number of them will be located within Teagasc Research Centres, but also we'll have a number of these towers on signpost farms, because again what we're looking for is a range of different managements, from extensively managed grasslands to very intensively managed and intensively fertilised and stocked grasslands. So by the end of it we should be able to build up a picture of what the impact of management on dairy farms is, and how much additional carbon is being sequestered by that management, because it's only the additional carbon that counts towards our inventories.
Dairy Research Ireland supports this project by Vistamilk because we know that grass sequesters carbon and believe that we are not getting credit for the amount that it sequesters. Therefore, we need the data to get the credit for it. We also need to know the values for various pasture managements, soil types and treatments. This is a very important project for dairy farmers at a time when climate targets are set at national and EU level.
Yeah, so following on from what you've just heard about in terms of soil carbon sequestration, we're very excited in Vistamilk on this programme. And I suppose we want to start by acknowledging our funders for this work, the Dairy Levy Trust, Department of Agriculture, Marine and Food, and also from SFI. So I suppose if we look at where we are here in Vistamilk, we're doing this work on soil carbon sequestration, but we're also doing significant other work in terms of, genetic selection, in terms of selecting animals that have better environmental footprints. We're also doing significant work in terms of looking at animals from a methane perspective. So we're, I suppose, looking at individual animals. We're looking at, their profile of emissions. We're looking at how they interact with different grasses, and we're also looking at how they interact with different additives. So we're very excited about this program. We're very excited that, we can potentially look at solutions for farmers that both reduce emissions and potentially increase profitability at farm level as well.